You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Champions League podcast. I promise you we won't be debating formats because this is the last game of the league phase. It's going to be epic stuff Wednesday night, and we're going to be lovely and positive about this. Mark O'Haire, I'm sure, who's also joined by Adrian Clarke. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. Yeah, a lot to get through in the Champions League. There is obviously a lot to talk about with the Premier League. Myself and Adrian are pleading the fifth on most of that Arsenal analysis until maybe Thursday, if you can just bear with us on that. Still 4 points clear for those listeners and viewers. InsideStyleMatchDay.com, full recap of the guys' picks. If you take 2 seconds and you're really enjoying the content, if you can, just like us on YouTube or subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening. I know a lot of people out there, majority listen on the podcast, but if you can leave a 5-star review there, that would be much appreciated. A quick reminder as well, if you haven't got a Matchbook Bet and Exchange account, you can get the benefits of our exchange pricing, but also the benefits of our bet builders. Just enter the bonus code POD50, POD50, full T's and C's available on your screen shortly, but also on matchbook.com/promotions. Lads, I mentioned a lot to get through here. We've got City, Galatasaray, Napoli, Chelsea, trying to pick the games that matter. Club Brugge versus Marseille, but we're going to start with PSG versus Newcastle. Adrian, we'll start with you on this one. Newcastle were very good, I thought, at home to PSV. Taking on PSG, it's almost like a winner-takes-all game here.
Yeah, really exciting. Really exciting match day, and this is one of the ties to keep your eye on for sure. Look, they were great against PSV, not so good against Villa, were they, at the weekend? We got that wrong. Thought they'd beat Villa at the weekend, but they were soundly beaten, really. So they'll be eager to put things right, but this is not going to be easy, is it? Away to the holders at the Parc des Princes. They themselves had a poor result, didn't they, against Sporting on the last match day. It's been a bit of a strange sort of defence of their crown so far, hasn't it? They haven't really got going, PSG, but I guess they didn't during the league phase last year either, did they? So, yeah, they've got a chance to sort of make life a bit easier for themselves in front of their own supporters. They have won 8 of their last 9 in Ligue 1. PSG, they're starting to find their rhythm a little bit domestically. And in the Champions League, they've scored a lot of goals at home, haven't they? 10 goals in 3 home games against Atalanta, Bayern and Spurs. So, yeah, I'm fancying them to really go at Newcastle here and to get on the front foot and to create plenty of chances and to probably score a few goals. Look, Bruno Guimaraes, it's a big loss. It's a big loss for Newcastle United, and I think that is going to be a bit of a difference maker. They probably wouldn't win there anyway, but without him, it's much harder. Newcastle have been a bit poor, haven't they, in the last 2 Premier League games? If you look at their form in this league phase as well, away from home, they let in 2, didn't they, at Leverkusen, 2-2 draw, let in 2 at Marseille, got beat 2-1. They did win Union Saint-Gilloise, didn't they? Was putting 4 past them, which was really impressive. So they keep scoring. I mean, they've scored in every game so far. All 7 games Newcastle have scored. And I wouldn't put it past them to get one against PSG, but I do believe that PSG have the firepower, have the quality, have the big match experience, and they certainly will have the weight of the home fan support on their side, won't they? So yeah, I've got to fancy PSG here. They're a better side than Newcastle United, and I think when it comes to this crunch game, they will turn it on and they'll deliver a winning performance. So I'm going to marry PSG with over 2.5 goals. I've just been talking up how Newcastle keeps scoring. PSG very much the same, particularly at home in the Champions League. So yeah, PSG and over 2.5, 2.12.
Okay, important to say, sorry, PSG and Newcastle both locked 6th and 7th on 13 points. So you might say to yourself, top 8, maybe a point would ensure it. I nearly say for certain that definitely won't be enough. So it is for sure a winner takes all. And Mark, it's an exciting format, isn't it? Of course. But a little bit on Newcastle. Speaking to Newcastle fans, it is interesting sometimes talking to obviously fans of the club. They watch, not just watch it, but they analyze a lot more than most of us. The frustrations with Anthony Gordon, who I see here is the 3rd top scorer in the Champions League this season, but a lot of them want, for example, someone like him gone. I think they're trying to get their money back off him. Even there's frustration with a lot of these players that you would ordinarily not think so. There is a lot of frustration, and I thought Sunday or yesterday was a microcosm of all that at home to Aston Villa.
Yeah, like Adrian, I got that game wrong on Sunday. I fully thought it was a great opportunity for Newcastle, a great spot for Newcastle to put in a performance, but they were flat for the most part, and they really did miss Bruno Guimaraes in that midfield, his drive, his energy was totally absent, and then to lose Joelinton as well early on, he'll be missing here, which is a hammer blow, really. Eddie Howe seems relatively confident Bruno will be available in some way or form, but he can't be 100% considering how he limped off last midweek. That'd be a massive recovery. So we'll have to wait and see for the team news. But they did finish that game with, was it Miley, Willock and Ramsey as the midfield three. Tonali came off late on through a bit of fatigue, perhaps a bit of a knock as well. But that's certainly an area I'd be watching ahead of this match, because that is normally Newcastle's area of strength. And that midfield three is going to get completely overrun with the quality of PSG if it's put out there. But we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I can understand some of the frustrations, most of which come from their away performances, because at St. James's Park, they've tended to come to the party and produce. But, we can strip it right back really to the boardroom or those kind of making the key decisions at the club. They are obviously brought in a lot of money with Alexandra Isak's sale. Did they spend that money wisely enough? Some of the sort of 200 million they've spent on Vista, Voltemada, Ramsey, Elanga. If you've got 200 million to spend, could you perhaps make that money go a bit further? Probably so. But I can understand their frustrations. They're a team who should be aiming towards the top 4, top 5 again. That's not been the case. And they've not been great travellers this season. 3 wins in 14. They failed to score in 6 of those fixtures, but considering the circumstances coming into this match, I wouldn't put it beyond them to get on the score sheet here and try and make a bit of a game of it, release the shackles a little bit and go out there and play without the sort of expectation on their back that no one expects Newcastle to go here and get a result. That can often make teams a little bit more dangerous than perhaps they normally would be. And I think they'll look at what Premier League teams have done at the Parc des Princes in the past sort of year or so. This will be the 6th game that PSG have hosted Premier League opposition since the start of 2025. The most recent, of course, was beating Spurs 5-3. Then last season, they beat Man City 4-2. Lost 1-0 to Liverpool, but they won the shot count 27-2 that night. If you remember, they should have won that game by 3 or 4 goals. Then they beat Villa 3-1, beat Arsenal 2-1 as well. So in those 5 games, they've won and seen both teams to score on 4 occasions and comfortably seen over 2.5 goals on each of those fixtures as well. So they're a team who haven't shot the lights out at all this season, and that's understandable. They had to go straight into Club World Cup action after the Champions League and had very little time off. They used the Super Cup then and the start of Ligue 1 as their pre-season. They were crippled by injuries as well in the first half of the season, but the squad has started to come back to its best, really. You've got Mbaye and Hakimi back from AFCON now as well. There are a couple of doubts over Nuno Mendes, Fabian Ruiz and João Neves coming into this game, but I expect a couple of those players to be available for PSG as well. So when it all comes to push to shove, really, PSG are the better team by a reasonable distance, and I expect them to get the job done. So, I'm going to back PSG to win and over 2.5 goals as well at 2.12. I think it's a fantastic price. I can easily see PSG covering that line all on their own, but I wouldn't put Newcastle off contributing to the tally as well, considering how the game is played out.
Okay, yeah, that's a big jump from 157. This is going to be our podcast bet builder, marginally ahead of Napoli versus Chelsea, I think. We're going to lock in PSG to win, over 3.5 goals on both teams to score. We're going to put a little bit bigger price on this week's one. So if you do want to join that's 3.6. Just enter that in your matchbook bet builder. That's all you have to do and get your money back as a free bet. If the bet loses up to £10, full T's and C's on insights.matchbook.com. As we go to Manchester City versus Galatasaray. Adrian, we'll start with you again on City. Very interesting team selection. Rumours were there long before the FPL deadline. A lot of people managed to change Haaland as captain. Yours truly wasn't one of them, unfortunately. Erling Haaland, Phil Foden dropped. I'm guessing they were rested, but we did touch on Erling Haaland, 1 goal in 8, now 1 goal in 9, albeit 1 from the bench there, that he hasn't been a man in form. And Marmoush scoring what was an Erling Haaland goal, I thought was quite fitting.
Yeah. It's probably time for him to have a breather. I too captained him and didn't get the memo.
You didn't get near mate.
Look, they've got other players they can use, like Marmoush, like Semenyo, who's hit the ground running. Another goal for him at the weekend. So look, they can afford to rest him on occasion. I don't think they will here. Big game. Obviously, they want to get top 8. They'll probably need to win the game to get top 8. So. Yeah, I cannot imagine a scenario where Erling Haaland's left out here. And maybe just having that rest will be a little bit of a jolt for him. He'll come back a little bit more fired up. And that could be bad news for Galatasaray. Got a lot of experienced players, Gala. But, I don't know whether they've got the personnel handle him. Obviously, I think Davinson Sanchez is still knocking around in their back four, so it could be a tough one for them. They have, they've not been defending well, Galatasaray, domestically. Just the one clean sheet in their last 8 in the Turkish La Liga. That said, in the Champions League, they haven't been too bad in terms of their organisation and how they've sort of coped with opposition defences. They've got threats up front. Obviously, Osimhen is the big one, 6 Champions League goals. Sané going back to the Etihad. They've got good players and they've got good experience throughout the team, Galatasaray. But I think City, a little bit like PSG, they are a class above Galatasaray. This is a game they know they need to win, and I can see them doing it in a fairly non-wild manner. If truth be told, 13 of the last 14 Manchester City matches have gone under 4.5 goals. The exception, of course, was that 10-1 against Exeter City. So City have been doing a professional job. Obviously, they've not been winning all the games. They've slipped up. Obviously, after the Buda Glimt embarrassment, they've got a chance to put that right here. And I'm pretty sure that they will put it right. But the pattern of goals in City games is that they get the job done often, but not, they don't go for the 5s and 6s as much maybe as they used to. And I think that Galatasaray are good enough to keep the score down, so to speak. Their last 6 Champions League games, Galatasaray have all gone under 4.5 as well. So I see a professional win that gets the job done by Manchester City, probably Erling Haaland on the score sheet. But look, you can get City. Obviously, they're a real short price. But if you couple it with under 4.5 goals, it's a much more palatable 1.97, just about even money, really. So that's my pick.
Okay, yeah. City, one of 8 teams on 13 points from 6th all the way down to 13. City currently sitting 11th on goal difference. And yeah, Mark, for you, and interesting stats on Adrian. And I think post that Fulham City game, which was 5-4, outside that Exeter, it's really been low scoring games, more or less, for City.
Yeah, I put up under 3.5 goals in that City Wolves match at the weekend, and it kind of breezed in despite the sort of worries in that first half. But I'm not as confident as Adrian, but I do expect Man City to win the game. But I do think they're quite short in this game, considering the players they won't have available to them. They obviously will be going to try and finish in the top 8, and if they do win, they should be there or thereabouts. There's a couple of teams above them with some tricky away games, so there's going to be an opportunity to claw a few of those teams back in. PSG and Newcastle play each other, so at least one of those teams is dropping points. But Gala aren't completely safe. They are 2 points above the top 24. They should be fine, but they'll want to try and make things safe. And a top 16 position means they will get seeded in the playoffs. So there's plenty for them to play for here too. But yeah, in terms of the players available, City are going to lose Guehi and Semenyo here, 2 of the sort of shining lights from the weekend and beyond. It means the centre-back pairing will be something from Maxilane, Kuzanov and Aki. Nunes probably plays right back, but O'Reilly might be required in midfield again because Nico Gonzalez is out. Rodri is suspended. So they are short in defence and midfield, which isn't ideal, I think, against the Galatasaray team, who do possess those weapons that Adrian said. Victor Osimhen, when he's on it, is a terrific all-round striker, one of the best in Europe. So this has become, I'd say, a trickier game for Man City than it probably needed to be for matchday 8. They were better against Wolves in that first half with the changes they made. They still weren't completely domineering the kind of team we expect them to be. So 3 wins in 8. They've scored more than twice in 2 of their last 11. One was against Exeter, the other against West Ham. Yet the handicap here is set at 2.0. Are City going to win this game by 3 goals or more? I think that's a bit of a harsh kind of indictment on where Galatasaray are. I think they can, or they are made of sterner stuff. They weren't great in defeat at Monaco, but they'll be expecting to go to Man City and put on at least as good an effort as Wolves did at the weekend, albeit City have won 13 of the last 16 at the Etihad. But I think Leverkusen and Dortmund have proven that you can come here and ruffle a few feathers and at least get on the score sheet. So I think Gala will look at that defence, look at that midfield and fancy their chances of at least getting on the score sheet. So that's going to be my selection here. Man City to win and both teams to score at 250-ish, I think, at 254. I think it's a really, really nice increase on Man City just to win, about 125, jumps up to 254 just to include an away goal. The BTTS on its own, I think, is a nice price actually at 182 as well. But yeah, just feel like the market is a little bit too far skewed in City's favour, but I still expect them to win. I just think Gala can give them a few problems as well on the night. So that's a nice price, I think, to cheer on.
Okay, yeah, big jump from 125. An interesting team selection. I don't think Al-Nuri will be playing right back, funnily enough, like he was against Bodo Glimt. I'll leave that there. Napoli versus Chelsea. Mark, we'll stick with you on this one. I mean, this is, again, I know I'm not winding you up with the format here, mate, but like, you've got Napoli 25th, right? Top 24 qualifies versus Chelsea in 8th, top 8 qualifies. You can't ask much more than that. So let us know what you think.
Format, isn't it, Mark? Yeah.
Did we never have these kind of games in the previous format? Was everything done and dusted on the final match? I mean, I can pick out half a dozen games with nothing on them if you want.
We won't.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is a fascinating game. This is what the format's all about. Napoli are fighting for their lives outside the top 24, needing a win to qualify. A point will not suffice. Chelsea begin the night inside the top 8, but again, a draw will not keep them in that top 8 position. They will need to come here and get a result if they want to stay there. That's my assumption. It's not for sure, but not for certain. But yeah, Napoli, Antonio Conte, traditionally way under par in this competition, and that's proven the case yet again. Wouldn't be too surprised to see them struggling where they are, because he's a very much a league-based man. For whatever reason, he can't get his team to fight competitively across 2 fronts. But Napoli will be well aware of the advantages of progressing in the Champions League, not just in terms of the stature, but also the financial benefits from that. So his focus has to be on this competition now, because Napoli were done and dusted at the weekend, 3-0 defeat against Juventus. And after the match, Conte basically conceded the title, the Scudetto, after winning it last season. So they can't make up that 9-point gap. They have 10 first-teamers missing against Juventus as well. So in theory, they should be chucking everything at this match to keep their season alive. Now, they are unbeaten at the Maradona across all competitions since December 2024, which shows how difficult they can be to beat here. But it's 1 win in 6 coming into this match as well. And yeah, those injury issues aren't going away anytime soon. So I think it's an interesting match from a permutations point of view. For me, it points to goals rather than having to sort of rely on either team here. Over 2.5 goals, trading just shy of 1.9, I think is a really nice place to be in, considering what's at stake and how these two teams should, in theory, approach this match. I thought Chelsea were good at Crystal Palace. Their A form has been pretty solid this season. Only Villa and Arsenal have won more Premier League points on the road. They've scored at least 3 goals on 6 occasions away from home this season. I guess meeting Palace this weekend was probably a good time to play them. It was pretty routine, but things do look a lot more stable around Chelsea now. A lot less noise around, and the performances have been okay to encouraging. 3 successive clean sheets. They should have conceded against Brentford, but even still, Cole Palmer's now fit and available to travel to Naples as well. So if I had to choose between the two, I would sort of slightly favour Chelsea, which I know Adrian is going the other way. But yeah, my play here is just to support goals, because I think Napoli have to come out fighting. Chelsea will fancy their chances too. That Palace game was their first clean sheet in 8 on their travels. They've already lost 2-1 in Atalanta in this competition when they were a shorter price. But yeah, you look at that team individually rather than collectively in defence, and they still make you quite twitchy. I don't expect them to keep a clean sheet. And then, you know, considering the circumstances and the permutations, I think goals are the best call here. So over 2.5 goals at 188 would be my play.
Okay, yeah, Adrian, firstly, from a Chelsea point of view, they struggled under a senior to break down Pavos. It has to be said for large parts of that at home. Much better, as Mark touched on, away to Palace. This is not a defining game. It's so early on in his reign, but it's a massive game if he can secure top 8. Just to take a little bit of, because there has been a lot of social media noise about some of his sayings and stuff like that. But joking aside, he can just take away that little bit of noise and just focus on his performances and results.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a big match for Liam Rossigna. He has won 4 or 5. You know, and he put up a pretty good fight against Arsenal in the game that they lost. So you have to say it's a good start, and you know, very good at Crystal Palace. But if they can navigate this one and win and make top 8, then it's a very good start, isn't it? A very, very good start. Doesn't really matter what he says. I think he's been guilty of maybe saying too much and trying to be a bit too clever in press conferences. And the media are quite brutal and ruthless, and they're definitely seizing on the opportunity to sort of take the mickey out of him, really. And I think that's a shame, because he is a good coach. But his experience in the Champions League is obviously minimal. He was doing very well with Strasbourg, of course, in the Conference League. I think they were top, weren't they, when he left? So he's done well in European football till this point. But this is a different, kettle of fish, isn't it? This is Napoli away at the Maradona. It's going to be, a huge crowd. The atmosphere there is pretty insane. It's going to be a test for him. He's up against Conte, of course. Whether he's got a good record in the Champions League or not, it's an intimidating match for Rossini and for a pretty young Chelsea side. Basically, my pick here is Napoli plus a quarter of a goal. We make money as long as Chelsea don't win. Half the bet is on draw no bet, but we still get a half stakes win if it is a draw. And it doesn't mean that even though a draw doesn't suit both teams, it doesn't mean that won't be the case. It doesn't mean that we won't end up with a draw. But I think Napoli can beat Chelsea. Obviously, Chelsea quite poor in defeat at Atalanta. They drew with Karabakh, lost to Bayern. Mark's talked about their away record, talked about their indifferent defence, particularly when tested away from home. And I just think this is even though this isn't a great season for Napoli, they've still got, good players. They've got experienced players that can cause them problems in that sort of hostile environment. And the killer stat for me, and the reason I'm going with Napoli plus a quarter of a goal, is the one that Mark reeled out. December 2024, the last time they lost at home. If they avoid defeat here, we make money. And I think that they can. In the Serie A, it's a 7 wins, 3 draws, no defeats. Beat Karabakh and Sporting at home this year in the Champions League. Drew with Frankfurt. I've had 8 clean sheets this season at home as well. So, yeah, I think they can. Yeah, I think it'd probably be goals, but I'm going to, excuse me, steer clear of that and just go with Napoli on the handicap here. I think they can extend this run, this unbeaten run against a dangerous Chelsea team, but still quite a green Chelsea side, still very young, still very inconsistent. Wouldn't surprise me if they slipped up here.
Okay, that's Napoli plus a quarter of a goal, which is, as Adrian touched on already, half your stake on draw no bet and half your stake on double chance. Let's go to Club Brugge versus Marseille. And Mark, back to you on this one. Watch Brugge away to Cairo. Thought their 2 wingers were exceptional. They play a lot of good football, albeit against weaker opposition. And Marseille would ultimately be disappointed enough. They had a big opportunity to maybe put in a big performance and a statement performance against Liverpool, and it didn't quite happen for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're okay. I think when I looked at this game first, I thought this has got all the makings of sort of being a real chaotic end-to-end game, considering what's at stake here. You've got Club Brugge, who are 1 point outside the top 24, and Marseille, who are inside the top 24, but they do have a solid goal difference, and there's 7 clubs level on points or below them. So in theory, they should be okay. I think if you look at the prices for them to qualify in the top 24, they're something like 1 to 40. So it's kind of changed my viewpoint on the game. I'm still expecting goals in this particular match, but I do expect Club Brugge to be the aggressors, considering they have to go out here and try and win to try and progress. And they are a lively team, as you said. Christos Zolis, the Greek winger, is attracting plenty of interest. He's been ripping it up there for Club Brugge for quite some time, actually. I think he played for Norwich in the past and was a bit of a flop, but he's been playing really well for Brugge, and they are playing with freedom in forward areas, and I think they will try and attack this game. So goals were the obvious starting point for me here. Over 2.5 is just a little bit too short to back on its own, so you've got to try and be inventive. But over 2.5 has landed in all 7 Brugge matches in the Champions League. 4 or more has landed in 4 of those fixtures. If you include qualifying, the overs line has been covered in all 10 games for Club Brugge this season. In the league phase here, they've been beaten 3-0 at home by Arsenal, drew 3-3 with Barca, and beat Monaco 4-1. Across all comps, 9 of the last 11 have seen 3 or more goals. And I expect them to follow that theme here against the Marseille team, who don't normally need an extra invitation to try and get forward and score goals, even if there's not a huge amount of jeopardy on their shoulders. But they produced one of their best performances of the season in Liga at the weekend, beating Lens 3-1 at the Velodrome. They did it with Mason Greenwood coming off the bench. Ethan Ranieri impressed on his debut. I'm sure you guys will talk about that, but Greenwood came on and looked incredibly lively with a point to prove too. So they're really well stocked in forward areas right now. Roberto De Zerbi, of course, in charge. We know about how he likes his teams to play. 11 of their last 14 have gone over. 11 of the last 13 away have gone over. 6 of their 7 in the Champions League have gone over, with BTTS also paying out in trips to Sporting, Real Madrid and Union Saint-Gilloise. So yeah, how do you get the over 2.5 goals to pay when it has already landed in 13 of their 14 combined Champions League games? For me, it's about backing Club Brugge to get to 10 shots or more. They need to win, obviously, to try and qualify. And they've already fired in shot totals of 18 versus, albeit a mix and match Arsenal team, 10 when they hosted Barcelona and 26 versus Monaco. If you look at the qualifying stage, they had 32 against Rangers and 23 against Salzburg at home. And Marseille have conceded the 10 shots or more in 9 of the last 10 European away days as well. So there's not heaps of pressure on them either. So they can take that sort of laissez-faire approach to this if they wish. I'm sure they'll engage in what should be quite an enjoyable, entertaining game.
Okay, that's over 2.5 goals. And Brugge, 10 plus shots at around 1.8. And yeah, Adrian, Nwanyeri can't play on Wednesday night, but a little bit about him, off to a lightning start. 18 years of age still. I mean, Saliba had a great loan spell at Marseille, so it could be a good fit.
Yeah, it's great for him. No doubt about that. Yeah, it was a really good start. Obviously, trademark goal. He sort of beats the player, drops the shoulder, and just whips one left-footed into the corner. He's got that in his locker, and he would have been frustrated this season, falling down the pecking order. And yeah, look, there's no doubt that this loan move is great for him. Is it great for Arsenal? I don't think so. I think that Arsenal need all of the players that they can have between now and the end of the season, competing on all 4 fronts. So they've been quite unselfish here in allowing him to go on loan. But I do think he'll return a better player. I mean, and it's so good for a young player to learn from someone new. And De Zerbi is very good. He's a very, very good manager, good coach. He improves young players. So yeah, in the long run, it will help Arsenal. But between now and the end of the season, I personally would like Nwanyeri to stay.
Yeah, quite frustrating. I think most Arsenal fans sooner, but yeah, you got to remember low move, long term potentially could work out. This game against Club Brugge, Mark laid out the permutations. Marseille effectively almost there, but a draw definitely would guarantee that. Yeah,
draw will be enough, and that's why I'm interested in them on double chance here. I want to pair that with over 2.5 goals. It's a nice price actually, 2.25. So you get any kind of draw or Marseille win that's over 2.5 goals. And for the reasons outlined by Mark, you've got to fancy goals, like you said, 13 of the last 14 combined across the league phase have gone over. The thing about Brugge is that they've watched them against Arsenal, and they are good going forward. They do carry a threat, but they're not good at the back at all. They conceded 17 goals, 14 by the way in their last 7 games in Belgian football. That's shocking. That's 2 a game over the last 7 matches. And in each of their last 3 domestic matches, they've let in 3 goals. So, it's 9 in the last 3. Not defending very well at all. And as we just discussed, Marseille have weapons going forward. You have some really good players. And even though a draw will probably be enough, they'd like the win, wouldn't they? The higher you finish, the more money you make. In theory, you get a better draw as well. So, I wouldn't think they're down tools here. And yeah, I agree. It was a good win against Lens. Before that, they went to Angers and smashed them for 5. And maybe the best gauge here is obviously they lost to Liverpool, but they've scored in all their away games in the Champions League. They got 3 at Union Saint-Gilloise, didn't they? And that's the best gauge, isn't it? They won 3-2 in that game, and I think they can do something similar here. So yeah, for me, it's Marseille double chance and over 2.5 goals at 2.25.
Okay, both Mark and Adrian selections with over 2.5 goals, which is 1.6 on its own if you want to back it, but you can boost the odds with those 2 selections. And insights on matchbook.com recap of those bets and all the other bets put up from Monday afternoon. And Mark, you've got 2 selections. Let's start with Atletico versus Bodo Glimt. Atletico are 12th, one of those teams on 13 points. And Bodo Glimt, I know it's slagging off cities and the team selection, but it was a sensational performance from them at home. Obviously, a different team at home versus away, but it gives them a squeak if they do somehow manage to get a victory here.
Yeah, I'm delighted for them because they threatened those performances and those results all through the competition and not managed to get it over the line. They were only 6-1 to beat Man City. Ajax won away at Villarreal on the same night and were actually a bigger price, so almost a bigger upset. But what they did in Bodo, what they did in Glimt, I should say, was pretty seismic. not just the manner of the result, but the performance too. And it gives them a puncher's chance of qualifying for the top 24. They still have to go to Atletico and win and hope results go their way. But yeah, I played around with the Champions League simulator with my own predictions. And yeah, if they win at the Metropolitano, they will progress. But you are relying on at least sort of 3-4 clubs above them failing to get a positive result. So they're 9.2 to win at Atletico. I did expect a bigger price, in all honesty. But yeah, that result against Man City has been threatened. Spurs and Monaco were hammered and glimpsed and managed to pick up results. Juventus handled their trip there much better. Away from home, they've had their moments, but largely been up against it at Dortmund and Galatasaray. I think something similar unfolds here. I think they'll go here with the aggression about their play, but ultimately fall down. Atletico outside the 8 on goal difference, but with Newcastle and PSG playing each other, a win for Atleti puts them right in the mix. A big win could really bolster their prospects as well. At the Metropolitano, they're normally pretty flawless. Their record across all comps since April 2025 is 16 wins and 1 draw. They've won 12 of the last 13 at home in this competition, but they have been conceding goals. 9 of the last 10 at home in the Champions League have seen both teams score. 8 of the last 10 here have seen Atletico win and both teams to score. So that's my selection, 246. For all Bodo's efforts in the final third, they have created 4.5 expected goals on trips to Slavia Prague, Dortmund and Galatasaray. They've scored at least twice in 2 of those 3 games. They have allowed a lot of opportunities. Shots in the box against in those 3 games away from home, 19, 19, 17. That's 55 in total, as well as 18 big chances. All 3 opponents have managed at least 40 touches in the penalty box as well. So that sort of front foot nature should play a bit into Atletico's hands. They tend to struggle a little bit against deep low blocks. That won't be the case here. So I think Bodo have conceded 2 goals more in 9 of the last 10 away in Europe, but both teams have scored in 10 of the last 11 away in Europe, which tallies quite nicely with Atletico's numbers and makes that 246 price quite decent.
Okay, that's your first any other bet. Second one is Athletic Club, who sit 23rd, 8 points, versus Sporting, who are one of the other teams on 13 points, and they sit 10th. So victory for either team could be huge. Draw could be enough for Athletic Club, not so much Sporting for top 8. So yeah, set this game up first, Mark.
Yeah, this is really nicely set up. Athletic Club only inside the top 24 on goal difference by 1 goal. So yeah, draw probably won't be enough for them. Hosting Sporting, who are only outside the top 8 on goal difference by 1 goal. So both teams have plenty to play for here, more from an athletic perspective, but Sporting would love to sneak into that top 8, of course. And Athletic around 230, which probably kind of rates them around equal. I'm not sure that's really the case over the first half of the season. Athletic did pull off a blinding result at Atalanta last week, but they have lost 15 of their 31 games across all comps this season. Sporting only losing 5 of their 31, but 2 have come away in this competition, albeit they are excellent in the first half at Bayern before losing. They also lost to Napoli. Athletic lost their opening 2 in the Champions League, but have since gone 2-2-1, beating Karabakh here narrowly and held PSG at home too. Sporting, of course, beat PSG in their last home fixture as well. So there's quite a few comparisons between the 2 teams, but considering what's at stake, considering the permutations, over 2.5 goals is just an automatic bet for me here at 183. I would make it a lot shorter. You've got an Athletic side desperate to stay in the competition. The last 5 games have seen both teams score. 4 have gone over 2.5 goals, which includes that 3-2 thriller in Bergamo last weekend. Nico Williams should be fit and available after being rested from the bench at the weekend with a niggle. And then you've got Sporting, who've seen BTTS land in 6 or 7 Champions League games, the same for over 2.5 goals. They've scored in every game, but only managed to keep a clean sheet at home to Brugge. They've also scored in 17 of the last 19 away in Europe as well. So I expect both sides to contribute to a goal-heavy game with plenty at stake, and overs is the play. But just a very quick one, worth noting too, Felix Zweier is the referee, the German, so cards should be on the menu. You've got obviously a Portuguese team against a Spanish team with a very card-heavy ref. No prices or markets at the moment, but he's given 6 red cards in 20 games this season, as well as 10 in his last 22 games. But get this, he's given a red card in 9 of his last 14 UEFA club games, including 4 or 5 this season. He's given 4 cards or more in 26 of his last 32 UEFA club games. And across his last 60 UEFA club games, he's averaging 5.75 cards. So obviously, when you've got 2 Iberian teams facing off in basically a knockout game with a card-heavy ref, it tends to go over. So I'd be looking at a red in that match.
Okay, keep an eye on the card markets on the match book. Bet Builder. Adrian, 2 selections for you. Not every game has to matter for both teams. And I guess Madrid traveling to Jose Mourinho's Benfica, who still can finish top 24, but they'll need a victory here.
Yeah, I think it's the longest of long shots, really, for Jose Mourinho's Benfica. So, yeah, look, I like Real Madrid here. I mean, Real Madrid are going to finish top 8, but they want to put a bit of pressure on Bayern Munich. Obviously, Bayern go to a highly motivated PSV on Wednesday as well. So it's no gimme that they'll avoid defeat there. And if they do get beaten Bayern, then Real Madrid can, in theory, leapfrog them on goal difference. So I think they'll be up for this game. I think Benfica know the game is up. They're a short price, obviously, 1.78, but you can boost that really nicely to 2.42 if you think Real Madrid will win and they'll be under 4.5 goals. And that's how I see it. Benfica's home record, not great in the Champions League phase. They did beat Napoli, but lost to Karabakh and Leverkusen. Their last 6 UEFA Champions League matches, Benfica, have all gone under 3.5, let alone 4.5. And domestically, they're not involved in many high-scoring games at all. This is Mourinho, of course, but they're quite solid. 95% of their matches domestically have gone under 4.5 goals, and in the Champions League, they've blanked in 4 of their last 6. They're not exactly full of goals at the moment. Benfica, they've struggled at that end of the pitch. So I think Real Madrid will be really sort of zoned in on this to get the job done. 13 of their 14 or their last 14 La Liga games have also gone under 4.5 goals. So Real Madrid, even though they've been involved in a few sort of lively Champions League games this season, they tend to try and get the job done a little bit more sort of effortlessly, efficiently, nothing too crazy. And that's kind of how I see Real Madrid manoeuvring across this last match week. Obviously, Real Madrid, not the perfect side. We saw that against City and Liverpool when they lost, but they are their only 2 defeats. And against most teams, they still have too much with Mbappe, Bellingham and co. Vinny Jr. A quality individual lineup. So yeah, look, I think Real Madrid will go there, get the job done, but Benfica can make it competitive. 2.42 on the win and under 4.5 goals.
Okay, and second selection, Dortmund, Inter. You look at 16th hosting 14th, not much on the line, but Inter, again, as we spoke about, only 1 point, they're on 12 points off 6th place, and Dortmund in the 16th spot, and you do get seeded, as Mark touched on at the top of the show.
Oh no, I think they'll go for it. These teams, there's quite a lot of money on offer for each spot, and I think that teams will want to get seeded, and for Inter, there's a massive incentive here. They are one of the teams. They're on 13 points. They can get top 8. But to get that, they're going to have to go for it and really take it to Dortmund and make their attacks count. And I did think they were really threatening against Arsenal. They really carried that menace. They got the front 2, of course, with Lautaro and Thuram, but Esposito looked a real character coming off the bench, a big unit, someone that maybe would relish an occasion like this. They have scored 13 goals in their 7 Champions League games, and away from home they've scored 7 goals into as well. So I can see them going to Dortmund and giving it a right good go. Look, Dortmund, I don't think they can get sort of overtaken. I don't think there's as much on it for them, but I don't think they'll want 15th or 16th as well. I think they'll want to climb a little bit higher than that. 15th or 16th, by the way, will get your Arsenal or Bayern, won't it, if you come through that qualifying round. So there's an incentive for them to potentially go a little bit higher than that. Look, I don't think this is going to be. I think both teams can absolutely score. Dortmund, of having a very, very good season. They tend to score in almost every home game, Dortmund. So I think both teams to score is a runner here in a game where they can sort of freewheel a little bit. Inter can't. So yeah, both teams to score, yes, for me, but also under 4.5 goals. It is Inter after all, and Inter do know how to defend. All of their Champions League games this season, Inter have gone under 4.5 goals, and 90% of their away games in Serie A this season have also gone under 4.5 goals. So Yeah, I don't expect this one to be a 3-2, a 4-2, but I do think both teams can certainly get on the score sheet here. So, look, Inter just they've got to go for it. Got nothing to lose. So yeah, for me, Dortmund. So both teams to score under 4.5 goals. It's even money at 2.
Okay, let's lock it in and move on to long shots and the game from our main slate. Mark, you do like Club Brugge and both teams to score, which is close to 4-1 on Matchbook currently, 4.9.
Yeah, so already very keen on goals in this game, but just based on where these two teams are at, Club Brugge, to me, look and feel slightly underrated. I'm not sure the market appreciates the permutations in its entirety. Brugge need a win and result regardless. A draw will not suffice. Now, I know the need and desperation to win doesn't always translate into results, but I think Marseille will be fine regardless of the result here. That's how things look in terms of what's happening on elsewhere and where they are right now in the league phase with their goal difference. So you've got a side here with their season almost depending on this result against a side that's done the majority of hard work already and might not be 100% throughout. Yet it's that team who's been priced up as the favourites here. So that's a position I thought I want to try and oppose, and I'm going to try and make long shot material out of it. Yes, Club Brugge didn't turn up against Arsenal in their last home game, but they absolutely did when they hosted Barcelona, drew 3-3 and gave them a huge shock in that match. Could have scored more in fairness. So I think they are capable of turning it on. They beat Monaco 4-1 here earlier in the competition. They will see Marseille and believe it's a winnable opportunity. And I think 4.9, when you factor in this is a home side who do look a little bit undervalued in a match where we're forecasting goals between two front foot teams, I think that's a nice price to cheer on as a long shot. I had planned on putting together a nicely priced goals acca, but this has taken precedence. I just think that's too big a price to turn down.
Okay, let's lock it in then. And Adrian, 33rd versus 5th in the Champions League table is Eintracht Frankfurt at home to Spurs. But look, Spurs' 4 wins, as we documented on this podcast, have all come at home, including quite surprising win and performance maybe at home to Dortmund. So away from home, yeah, well, that's true. Well, at 1-0. But do you think this, or 0-0, I think, wasn't it? Sorry. Do you think this is a team that can go out and get a result when they need? Because they probably still need a win, even though they're 5th and 14 points.
Look, this is just a fun pick for the long shot. Look, Spurs, it's not a happy place. Thomas Frank is not popular. The fans are on his back. They drew at Burnley and they're still singing, they want him out. So it's not a good time for Frank and for Tottenham Hotspur. And I just think it would be super Spursy of them to potentially blow a top 8 space against a team that's already out of the competition. It's sort of ultimate Spursiness. So that's where I'm going with it. And I do feel that Frankfurt are quite dangerous, aren't they? I mean, we've talked about them a lot this season because they score 2s, 3s, and 4s so often, but they also let in 2s, 3s, and 4s a lot as well. 9 of their last 12 games, Eintracht Frankfurt have gone over 2.5 goals. Their last 5 matches have all gone over 3.5 goals. So they are kind of fun, aren't they? And look, with nothing to lose, with nothing to play for, providing they don't put out a reserve team, and I don't think they would, then they with the pressure off, they can cut loose here and maybe give Spurs creaking defence some problems. I mean, not defending well, are they? I mean, Romero and Van der Ven all over the shop the other day. I know Romero keeps scoring, keeps bailing them out, but the defending against Burnley was pretty shambolic at times. We're hearing reports that Van der Ven wants out as well. So look, this isn't a gimme, is where I'm coming from. And that's why I want to get on side with a long shot. It would be funny for non-Spurs fans as well if they were to lose to a team that's already out as well. And if they do get beat, I think it'll be a fairly high-scoring game. We've seen a lot of 4 of the last 5 for Spurs have been over 2.5 goals. They let in 3 at Forest, 3 at Bournemouth, and of course 2 at Burnley as well. So fun one for me. Frankfurt to win over 2.5 goals. It's a nice juicy 6.2.
Yeah, and as you touched on, a lot of money for wins and draws, and I think in Bundesliga and stuff that stuff is worth it for a one-off game to still go for it, even though they've nothing to play for Frankfurt. So let's see. Let's go on to best bet time and mark a nice double here on Champions League Matchday 8 as your best bet, and it's Barcelona and PSG double.
It's one of those weeks where there's loads and loads of options. It's quite difficult to try and nail down one best bet, and there's a lot of really nice prices that stand out. But I am going to try and keep it relatively simple. I think there's lots of good options elsewhere, but yeah, I'm going to straight down the line. With my best bet, it's only 175, but I'm trying to defend a 7-game winning streak, I think, in the best bets. So I do feel this should be shorter. I think PSG are slightly bigger than perhaps I would have them against Newcastle. We've already outlined what we think PSG will win that game. And then it's about Barcelona doing the business against FC Copenhagen at the Camp Nou. A very short price, but understandably so. They've won 12 or 13 at home this season, only losing at home to PSG. And Copenhagen, last week's game against Napoli was their first competitive match since mid-December. They're in the midst of their winter break in Denmark. Their away record has not been great domestically or in the Champions League, where, of course, they were stuffed by Spurs and beaten at Karabag as well. So they need a result to progress in Barcelona, which should, in theory, play into Barca's hands as well. Rafinha and Lamine Yamal both available. So, yeah, PSG and Barcelona to win comes in at 175. I don't think you can go too far wrong with that double.
Okay, Mark picking up the bat and blocking his way to a draw in Test Match Cricket by the sounds of things on that best bet run. Very quickly, Mark, you mentioned you have a few angles just for people listening that want to build full multiples on Matchbook, over 2.5 goals, that sort of thing. What's the most value? Because these things are obviously priced in, but what does the market miss, if anything, slight value for listeners?
Yeah, basically the games we've covered so far. Just based on what's at stake for both teams, look to those particular matches. So, yeah, I really like Napoli-Chelsea. I love Athletic versus Sporting. That was a real consideration as well. We've discussed Atletico against Bodo again. And, yeah, I mean, those kind of games are the ones where I'm looking towards. And yeah, BTTS multiples, over 2.5 goals, etc. I'll be having a few of those across the board on Wednesday night, and looking forward to seeing the mayhem that follows. I think it was quite underwhelming last year, if I remember rightly, Matchday 8. But here's hoping this time around it goes a bit one better.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot more on the line this year, anecdotally anyway, from memory from last year. And one of those over 2.5 trebles you've built yourself, Adrian, as your best bet.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a bit of fun. Yeah, I mean, we've been goal laden, haven't we, in the Champions League so far this season? And there's some really motivated teams on the last match day. So yeah, treble of over 2.5 goals. I start with Barcelona FC Copenhagen. Mark's talked about it. Barca games have averaged 4.43 during the league phase. Both teams to score has landed in, I think, all but one. Every Barcelona game's gone overs. There's been no clean sheets, and Barca have to win, and goal difference really matters to them potentially as well. So I think that they go for it. Copenhagen have let in 17 in 7. They are motivated themselves to get a point that might be enough, and their games have averaged over 3 as well. So yeah, Barca Copenhagen's the first. PSV Bayern is the second. PSV, super attack-minded side, always have been under their current coach. Their games in the league phase have averaged 4.14, no clean sheets. They need at least a point. They probably want to go for 3 as well, even though it's going to be tough against Bayern. Bayern have scored 20 goals in the league phase. All but one game has gone over 2.5 goals. They need a point, that's all. But, they're involved in a lot of high-scoring matches themselves. And the last one is Atletico Buda Glimt. Mark's been talking about that a lot on today's show. Atletico games average 4.14, no clean sheets. They can get top 8 with a win, so they really want to go for it here. All but one Buda Glimt game has gone over 2.5 goals, 3.78 goals per game across the league phase as well. And they need a win and will go for it big time. So, yeah, I just think the ingredients are there in these 3 matches for us to see at least 3 goals. So it's the Barca game, the PSV game, and Atletico, and that bundles up nicely into a 2.22 little acca.
Okay, let's lock it in as best bet. Plenty of things to get stuck into. Insights.matchbook.com if you want to recap and you want to build a few fun multiples. Best of luck to listeners, viewers, and of course to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back later in the week, Thursday most likely, with our Premier League preview. As I mentioned, there's going to be a few weeks in a row where we're going to be non-stop football action, but couldn't ask for more than that. Enjoy the week's football. I say the week's football. it's going to be 2 hours of mayhem, hopefully on Wednesday night. And we'll be back on Thursday to review a little bit of that, but mainly focus on this weekend's Premier League. Bye-bye.